So what do we really know about the samurai? We all know they were highly skilled swordsmen, right? So far so good. There are quite a few widely held erroneous beliefs about these honorable ancient warriors, however. Were the samurai really as loyal to the masters as previously thought? Were all samurai straight? Well, if you pick yes, you'd be wrong on all accounts. Now that I've got your undivided attention, watch on and let's take a look at some commonly held beliefs about the samurai that are just plain wrong. Number 1. The samurai were extremely loyal. Sorry to destroy this idealized image of the fierce warriors of yore, but as often the case, reality and fantasy occupy two different spectrums, and as for the actual samurai, well, some were as loyal as tiger woods at a Thai brothel. In the early period of their emergence in the Heian period, they were loyal to whoever paid them, and their allegiance would shift at any time. Yes, their moral fiber depended heavily on what they were paid to do, and by whom. It wasn't until the 12th century when the modern image of the samurai began to emerge. I can already hear you scream, "What you consider I made?" What about the famous stories of samurai being extremely loyal to their masters? Reading old Japanese stories about famous warriors living in the 12th century can be misleading, as there are many examples of utmost loyalty in these tales. The thing is, quite a few of these tales were taken out of their original context and rewritten centuries later to reflect the idealized values of the time period, not those of the past. Many of these edited and re-edited compilations are the versions that are presently in common circulation, and it can take some digging to unearth the older, less embellished editions. Number 2. Marrying a samurai was the dream of every girl. According to some historical sources, samurai women were not the handsome, nor elegant, nor educated. Surely they cared for their look, hence they painted their lips red, shaved their eyebrows, whitened their skin with rice powder, painted their teeth black. Yes, they painted their teeth black. Take care for their long hair, and so on. They typically spent their days in loneliness, for their husbands were almost always engaged in faraway battles. Their homes were often attacked by enemies. Ancient chronicles report of women fighting with bow or halberd to defend their properties. Some followed their husbands onto the battlefield to demonstrate their devotion. Love was an important feeling for aristocrats, which were polygamous anyway. For the monogamous samurai, love for a woman was more in form of respect than passion. Before marrying, women could have their experiences with several men, but after marriage, fidelity was mandatory and betrayal was punished with divorce. Marriages occurred at an early age so that children may have young parents. Number 3. They lived, breathed, ate and slept Bushido. Yes, I know that the 7 commonly accepted tenets or virtues of Bushido are benevolence, courage, honesty, honor, loyalty, respect and gratitude. Sorry to disappoint you again. However, Bushido is actually a relatively recent aspect of samurai culture. Truth is, if you had the chance to talk with even an early 17th century samurai about Bushido, they would most likely stare at you in utter confusion. Prior to the Tokugawa era, the only notable attempt to quantify a strict set of samurai values can be attributed to Hojo Son, who wrote Lord Son's 21 articles, a number of lessons directed at regulating the behavior of samurai retainers. The modern Bushido principles are actually based on Confucianism and gained popularity with the populace during the late Meiji era, which was much later in the 18th century. What about the indestructible code of honor specifically? Almost all people think due to the aforementioned Bushido principles, the samurai were extremely honorable. Well, that was also born during the later period of reign. You see, our Western sense of honor meant absolutely nothing to the Heian era samurai. That all came into the picture much later. The early variety did not shy away from deception and what we could now consider less than honorable tactics behavior, simply because they had no concept or anything similar to what we in the West would consider honor. It was killed or to be killed in those early days, and that's all that counted at the end of the day. Survival of the fittest, if you will. The current image we all have of samurai was actually born during the Tokugawa era. Number 4. The samurai were a rare elite force. No. They were not quite the tightly defined small number of elite warriors we think them to be. Imagine 1,000 of these fierce warriors running towards you. Scary as hell, right? Now imagine over 2 million. Yep. At the height of their reign, there were over 2 million armed samurai roaming the island. They made up roughly 10% of the population of Japan, an entire social class, and were the only class legally allowed to possess swords or any kind of weapon. Their weapon of choice, of course, was the sword, or rather 2 of them. They always wore the katana, the long sword, and the short sword, either the wakizashi or the tanto together. Another weapon they were also extremely skilled with was the yumi, a short bow. You see, what most people don't know is that samurai were also excellent bowmen. As a matter of fact, they used the bow and arrow much longer before their famous swords even entered the picture. Speaking of bow and arrow. Number 5. All samurai were as straight as an arrow. Well, not exactly. You see, homosexuality in feudal Japan was very much like that in ancient Greece. Any society with a highly ritualized class structure, thus master-slave submissive relationships, is bound to have some kind of homosexual activity, and the samurai were no different. Actually, rare was the samurai who didn't partake in some fun with younger male lovers, which was actually encouraged, especially during the Edo period. Called wakashuro, this relationship with an older, more experienced mentor was extremely common in those days. That doesn't mean that all samurai had homosexual tendencies, but it was not as rare as most people would probably imagine, given the extremely fierce image we now have of these mythicized warriors. Number 6. Only Japanese could become samurai. And one last time, nope. While the image of the samurai we have nowadays is almost exclusively of Japanese people, the title of samurai was also given to non-Japanese on several occasions. In one instance, none other than Ieyasu Tokugawa himself presented 2 swords, representing the authority of the samurai by the way, to English sailor and adventurer William Adams, thus naming him the first Westerner to be named a samurai. Many others followed, including a Dutch colleague of Adams, Jan Josten van Lodenstein, a French soldier, Eugene Collage, and a Prussian military instructor, Edward Schnell. Surprised, the history and image of the samurai is not as clear-cut as you thought, perhaps even a bit shocked about these insights into samurai culture and history, as it is often the case when it comes to the mysteries of history, there's always more to the story than meets the eye.